the Danish Defense Minister and Greenland's Minister of Foreign Affairs saying that they had a productive meeting with the NATO Secretary General, and the ministers met with NATO chief at the alliance's headquarters in Brussels. The Arctic security was the top focus, we're told. The meeting comes as European leaders grapple with how to really respond to President Donald Trump, and they demand that US should be controlling Greenland. Rishabh, any details of the meeting?
Well, if we talk about, it's very clear that, Donald Trump has been going to town, has been going, meeting everyone and saying that, the Greenland should belong to US. And the way at this meeting of the, NATO chief along with the defense minister of Greenland comes after the meeting of foreign minister between the US foreign minister and the Denmark foreign minister. And then he goes on to discuss that how NATO needs to stop him. But the problem is the biggest force contributor to NATO is United States. The highest defense budget in NATO is basically United States. For that matter, US defense budget is greater than the combined defense budget of the rest of the NATO. So that showcases that NATO chief does not have much. And remember, this is the same NATO chief who was publicly embarrassed by Donald Trump, saying that he calls me daddy in private. So
Rishabh, what we're seeing is that Trump is running the country the way he wants, and the United States is a powerful country, yes, but it seems to be doing whatever it wants, and the European nations are also finding it out the hard way. Do stay with us. We have more updates coming in of France as well, slamming this pressure by the United States, saying the coercion threshold has been crossed, that the Trump tariff threat is not going to work, and 8 European nations have now targeted the US president, going on to say the 10% tariff warning is unacceptable because then it has now also increased to 100%. KP Fabian joins us over the phone line. Thank you for joining us. Ambassador, how do you look at what's happening in the United States? Trump, of course, we saw what has already happened. First was the 10% tariff threat. Now you have a 100% tariff threat with the European Union, a close ally of the United States.
Morning. Trump seems to believe that if there is an international dispute where United States interests are involved, then by resorting to imposition of tariffs, he can resolve it. I personally consider it as a wrong approach to international relations, because what is required is classical diplomacy. But Trump doesn't believe in that. But I want to focus on how Europeans are responding. First of all, they are sending troops to Greenland was absolutely unwise. That sort of provoked Trump. Instead of doing that, they should have summoned a NATO conference in Brussels to discuss how best to defend Greenland. They didn't do that. And secondly, Macron has said that European Union should hit back at Trump by raising tariffs against the United States. Well, he's right. But, classical diplomacy would have meant that his ambassadors in the European Union, the rest of the 26 countries, would have put across to their governments, listen, this is a situation, this is what we think we can possibly do, what do you think? In other words, you consult with others before coming out with your position, which if you do that, it only divides your side.
Yes, but it does undermine what the United States stands for as well, isn't it, Ambassador? Because clearly the words of Trump also indicate that even if there is a partial agreement with any nation, with the European Union, then it could suddenly come under threat if he feels so. Do stay with us. We have more breaking updates now coming in on the broadcast. Amid these tensions, breaking updates coming in of the United States sending aircraft to Greenland base now. More updates coming in, and it only seems to be escalating. The United States deploying aircraft to a key military base in Greenland. The U.S. military says the move comes amid the escalating tensions to acquire the Arctic territory. Ambassador, how do you look at this development in line with what Trump has been saying? Because now we're told in the latest, in a clear escalation, aircraft also being deployed at the Greenland base.
Well, let me put it this way. If Trump wants to militarily take over Greenland, Europeans cannot resist it at all. Only thing is that the Greenlanders might, again I say might, start a guerrilla war. And also, Trump also confused things unnecessarily by saying that he wanted to purchase it, So if he wants to take it over militarily, for the time being, nothing stands in his way.
But Ambassador, is the world going to run like this? The United States having a free run in whatever it wants, or, Trump first imposing these sweeping tariffs, then moving the aircraft into Greenland as well. Is this how it's going to work? Does it not raise some very serious questions?
It does. And to my mind, realistically speaking, a democracy should be able to self-correct itself. And let us see whether the Senate or the Supreme Court can correct Trump. I do not think external powers can.
Okay. All right. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. We're told Denmark has also moved a large number of additional troops to Greenland. Let's bring in Rishabh as well on this. Rishabh, what are the updates? Is this very clearly signaling by the United States, or could there actually be military movement?
Well, see, there is not going to be a war. That is very clear that there is not going to be a war between U.S. and European allies, given that the NATO is still alive, even if, in the breathing the last, but it is still there. So U.S. won't go after the allies. U.S. will try and pressure Greenland or Denmark over Greenland. U.S. will try and corner Denmark over Greenland. And as Ambassador Fabian was also very categorically saying, that Europe does not have the might to face U.S. But this will open a can of worms, because now everyone who wants anything will go for it. Russia wants Ukraine, will go for it, given and whenever there will be sanctions against Russia, or people will go against Russia, Russia would be like, see, US wanted Greenland, it took Greenland, so we want certain areas of Ukraine, we want certain areas of Russian to be in Ukraine. China would say tomorrow that Taiwan belongs to me and I am annexing it. Similarly, India, all the countries who have the dispute on boundaries will go ahead and start doing what they want, and the world order will crumble. And that is the biggest fear of the global pundits right now, that Donald Trump's bulliness in Greenland and the way he's tackling the geopolitics, and especially in Europe, will crumble the world order. Denmark, along with other 8 European countries, is putting a strong face forward, but the strong face and strong front are 2 different things, and that we have seen in Ukraine as well.